started my career in finance. Didn't know I was going to be a tech guy, but really started gravitating towards tech when I was doing investment banking M&A. Eventually transitioned into venture capital. And when I was in VC, I always felt like a little bit of an imposter. Relatively early in my career, trying to give founders advice on how to run businesses without having actually run one myself. I think being a VC is tough. I enjoyed it. It was a fun job, but I always felt like I was missing something. And so back in 2016, Uber had just started experimenting with different models outside of moving humans around. And Travis was still there back then, and he kind of asked the question to the team, if we can get a car to someone in 5 minutes, what else could we deliver to customers? And so I was hired in to lead a business called Uber Everything at the time, which ironically wasn't everything. It was everything that wasn't rides, which was nothing. And there was a bunch of different products at the time. Eats was a part of it, as was a business called Rush, which was more like package delivery. And in 2016, it was still pretty early in the Uber Eats evolution. Um, the model back then was still largely in the Uber Eats app, where you could order, a sandwich or a pad thai, and they would come to your door. But the options were very limited, and so it was like, instead of us seeing the Uber X button, there was like a food button, and that was the initial iteration was kind of crazy. It was called Uber Instant at the time. And every morning we'd go and we'd fill these Ubers with a pretty small selection of menu items. And we'd meet them in a parking lot, and we'd, literally stuff hundreds of sandwiches or hundreds of pad thais or hundreds of whatever it is into these Ubers. They would drive around. And then if you wanted that for lunch, you'd press a button and it would show up in literally 10 minutes. Um, the problem with that, it was just very unscalable, and it required a lot of coordination, and inventory management was a nightmare because some of the drivers would run out of their item within an hour or two, and others would drive around for the entire day and not sell out of their item, and so those would all come back to our office. And if it was, you know I don't know, pad thai for lunch, and that didn't sell out, the entire office was having pad thai for dinner. And so that's when the Uber Eats app started becoming something that we needed to develop. And so that was actually built in Toronto. So I'm based in Toronto. A team of developers flew in, sat in a room for 2 months, built the Uber Eats app. We launched it out of Toronto globally, and kind of the rest is history. But that was, I was there during a time of pretty intense scaling. We put a bunch of the enterprise customers like McDonald's and A&W and Starbucks, it was a big question mark at the time whether or not people really wanted fast food delivered. And we went from, in Canada, we went from, basically a couple thousand orders a month to millions of orders, sorry, a couple of thousand orders a week to a million orders a week. And then, DoorDash and, obviously Uber Eats in the US, and, like all these other food delivery businesses started taking off. Um, and that's when, so I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It was, scaled from zero to $3 billion in GMV under my P&L within 3 years. And then, my decision was, do I continue at Uber, and where, being in Canada in a satellite office, the next decision point was to go back to San Francisco. I'd lived in San Francisco. It's a great place, but I'd moved my family already, and I'm Canadian. And so I was happy in Toronto. I had probably another year or two left at Uber, but it was this really cool opportunity around used cars. And I met someone that was on the board of Clutch. He called me up and said, "Hey, look, like you're delivering food, maybe you should deliver cars instead." And despite not being the same thing, there are some similarities. People, uh, people want convenience, and they want things delivered quickly, and that was certainly lacking in used car sales. And so started on this journey back in 2019. And could talk a little bit about that, but that's been, quite the roller coaster ride, given where given the pandemic, given now tariffs, given the lack of growth equity in 2022 and 2023, and just the physical nature of the product we're providing certainly adds complexity to any marketplace and specifically ours.